Information, please. Presented each week at this time by Canada Dry, famous the world over for its fine beverages. Wake up, America. Time to stump the experts and enjoy a glass of cool, refreshing Canada Dry ginger ale. Every week at this time, Canada Dry stages its own inquisitive inquisition with 4 experts as the willing victims. Here's how it goes. For every question we use, whether or not it's answered correctly, the sender gets $5. And if your question stumps our board of experts, you not only get $10 more, but in addition you receive a complete 24-volume set of the current Encyclopedia Britannica. Mind you, this is only if your question stumps our board of experts. Our editorial staff may reword your question a trifle. Don't worry about it. Whenever there is a duplication of questions, Information Please uses the one that was received first. All questions become the property of Information Please and should be addressed to Canada Dry, 1 Pershing Square, New York City, or in Canada, Canada Dry, Toronto. At this point, I usually present Mr. Clifton Fadiman, our Master of Ceremonies. I regret to announce, though, that Mr. Fadiman has been taken ill and will not be with us tonight. So we are calling upon Mr. Adams to give up his expert's chair and assume Mr. Fadiman's role as Master of Ceremonies for this evening. Believe it or not, Mr. Adams, you are Master of Ceremonies.
That ought to cure Mr. Fadiman, no matter what he's got.
If you don't mind, Mr. Adams, I will read Mr. Fadiman's usual introduction while you are pulling yourself together.
I'll pull myself apart as far as that goes.
Well, if you do, a cool glass of Canada Dry will pick you up, as they say. Ladies and gentlemen, the questions that you are about to hear have not been seen or heard before by any of the experts. This is a cast-iron guarantee. Everything you hear on this program is completely ad-lib. The ad-libbers this evening are the eminent sports expert, John Kieran, the composer and author, Oscar Levant, and as our guests, the distinguished journalist and biographer, Alva Johnston, and the Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright and producer, Mark Connolly. Remember, listeners, for each question that is missed, Canada Dry rings up $10, which is paid out to the sender, plus 24 volumes of the latest edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica. All right, Mr. Adams, you can start with question number 1.
Question number 1 comes from Mary W. Gardner of Coronado, California. The question is, what toy wrote poetry, was the hero of a movie, and was named after a president? 3 questions. You're asked to get 2 out of 3. What toy wrote poetry? Raise your hands if you know the answer.
You see any hands?
I see no hands whatever. Well, what toy was the hero of a movie? Mr. Connolly.
Pinocchio.
Correct. And what toy was named after a president? Mr. Johnston.
Teddy bear.
That's right. And so that question is all right, and we missed one. The toy that wrote poetry was Winnie the Pooh, the toy bear of A.A. Milne's The House at Pooh Corner. Mr. L. Daniels of Indianapolis, Indiana, asks, if you wanted to see these fights, staged without the Queensberry rules, where would you have gone? Vincent versus Sweeney. Mr. Levant.
I'm not sure, but how about Washington, D.C.? Is that right?
That's right, but how about it? What, you know any of the details of the fight?
Well, I think it was 2 representatives. One of them called Sweeney and the other called Vincent, and it must have been a debate about conscription. Is that right?
That's exactly right. It's wonderful.
Thank you, Daddy.
Brooks versus Sumner. Mr. Johnston.
The Senate of the United States. Brooks hit Sumner with the club several times and laid him out back in 1855 or something like that kind.
May 22nd, 1856. Pretty close. Gernano versus Margakus.
Ooh, what a pronunciation. It's Major Kurth.
Major Kurth.
Sorry, Mr. Adams. Well, I was in Brooklyn. That was due to a rabid Brooklyn fan who didn't like a decision by Major Kurth, which... Well, you don't want me to go into that. That's dangerous ground.
You don't remember the date, do you?
It was last week.
It was last week, September 16th.
Mm-hmm.
Miriam Weiss of Memphis, Tennessee, asks you to name the fictional character who married to get himself a new car, that he might win an election for mayor, and because his future wife could stand on her head on the butt end of a spear with fireworks going off all around. 2 out of 3 you're asked to get.
What's the first?
The first is to name the fictional character who married to get himself a new car. Mr. Levant?
It's not well, it could... The boy who threw the ball all the time against the wall in Tobacco Road.
Yeah.
What's his name, Dude?
Mr. Johnston?
Dude Lester, I think.
I don't know his name.
Dude Lester in Tobacco Road is right. Little collaboration, but good. And who is the fictional character who married in order that he might win an election for mayor? Mr. Johnston?
The Great McGiddy.
Right. And who, because his future wife could stand on her head on the butt end of a spear with fireworks going off all around?
What did he marry her for? I don't get that.
Do you know 5 better reasons? You don't have... You can... 4 out of 5 is good enough for that. That's a well-known
Is she still
character.
living? There was an English humorist who wrote a book. Am I close?
You're pretty close.
Now, wait a minute. He wrote One in America. Is that the same fella?
That is not the same fellow.
Well, I'm not close.
You've got 2 out of 3 anyway. But this happens to be Mr. Vincent Crummels, who married Mrs. Crummels in Nicholas Nickleby. And when 5 better reasons are made for marriage, Mr. Dickens will probably write them. Mr. Irving G. Smith of Denver asks what presidential candidate was pictured by cartoonists with a large package of newspapers protruding from his coat pocket. There are 4 of these, and you're asked to get 3. With a large package of newspapers protruding from his coat pocket. Well known in cartoons at the time.
Is that around McKinley's time? Just asking now.
I'm asking questions here.
Theodore Roosevelt was always pictured with the magazine sticking out of his pocket, a magazine of which he was editor.
You don't mean the Outlook?
I do.
Well, that was not a large package of newspapers protruding from his coat pocket.
Depends on how you like the Outlook.
Horace Greeley.
Horace Greeley, of what newspaper?
The New York Tribune.
Of which we are alumni. With ostrich feathers protruding from the top of his hat. Mr. Johnston.
James E. Blaine.
James G. Blaine, known as the Plumed Knight. Carrying a cudgel.
T.R. Roosevelt.
Theodore Roosevelt, and why?
The big stick, which he shook at malefactors. A great will.
And who was pictured as a schoolmaster wearing a mortarboard? Mr. Connolly.
Woodrow Wilson.
That's all right. We will now present from G. Morton of Detroit a love scene in music. The dialogue is contained in the titles of the songs to be played by our pianist. Can you tell what the boy says and what the girl says? Music cue.
Let me call you sweetheart.
Raise your hand. Mr. Connolly.
Just wild about Harry.
Hands, please. Mr. Levant.
What'll I do?
That's right.
This would have been a good one for Mr. Adams.
I'd love to be on that other side. And what is that, Mr. Levant?
Might be your once in a while, Daddy.
That's right.
Did you sing that originally?
Never. Never heard of it.
It's a Rodgers and Hart song.
Mr. Connolly, what would that be?
I'm expecting for some quick help from Mr. Levant.
It's from Babes in Arms.
Babes in Arms.
Where or
when?
That's right.
Thank you.
That's a nice little collaboration. There's another one. Mr. Connolly.
We'll have a little nest in little flat in Flatbush by Pelham Grenville Woodhouse.
Well, that's pretty close. When it's nesting time in Flatbush, and that was guessed
oh boy.
100%.
Well, Jerome Kern wrote the music, incidentally.
I only know the lyric.
Well, didn't he write the music,
Yes,
Mr.
He wrote the music. You were asked to name 4 famous people whose names mean political or geographical divisions, as, for instance, Carrie Nation. Mr. Connolly.
Senator Gary,
Well, that's right.
the inventor of the gerrymander.
That's right. Mr. Levant.
Rudy Valley. Well, Valley. Is that a division or a portion?
I think that's a geographical division. Mr. Kieran.
Kennesaw Mountain Landis.
That's fine. Any more?
Man Mountain Dean.
We got to get another one. No, that wouldn't work.
ABC.
Oh, yeah.
Manufacturer.
Edgar Rice Burroughs.
That's right. That's a good one. How about Artemus Ward?
How about Simeon Lake?
We're getting
Simeon
into
Lake.
politics now.
How about our old buddy Mo Berg?
Yeah.
Are you answering these questions?
Then you could get a couple more. You could get Temple Bailey and Myron C. Wick. How do you like that, Mark?
A marriage can be arranged.
I suppose you think there is no such person as Myron C. Wick. He lives in Cleveland, and he's in Republic Steel.
I'm your guest.
How about Hill Brothers Coffee? No.
As we pause before our plunge into the second half, we find that Canada Dry has paid out 0 in money and no sets of the Encyclopedia Britannica to erudite question framers. All right, Mr. Cross, shoot.
According to the calendar, autumn has finally arrived, which means that we move indoors for our evening entertainment. Soon the usual fall dances will take place, and as always, the crowd will gather at the refreshment table where sparkling Canada Dry water will be the ruling club soda. Canada Dry water will never be a wallflower at the party or dance because it is so well liked by everybody. For one thing, it makes your favorite drink taste better, and its millions of extra bubbles keep the drink lively and sparkling for a good long time. So when you dance over and stop at the refreshment table, always pour your club soda from the platinum-colored bottle with the silver top, the Canada Dry bottle. Your drink itself will dance in the glass when the soda is Canada Dry.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Your cogent advice was delivered in what seemed to me 3 seconds. In the second half of this entertainment, Mrs. William E. Tower of Meshanticut, Rhode Island, asked you to name the books or poems about characters who traveled in these unusual conveyances. And I don't understand how we haven't lost any money. When I'm up there, we lose money. A mummy case. Mr. Connolly.
An actress in The Man Who Came to Dinner.
Correct. A rocket. You only have to get 3 out of 4 of these. A rocket.
Baron
Mr.
Munchausen.
Connolly again.
Baron Munchausen.
Well, I wouldn't know about that. That isn't on the card
stories.
here.
What do you mean, a rocket? A conveyance? A rocket to the moon type?
Something like that, yes.
Well, Mickey Mouse has made several trips on rockets.
Buck Rogers was doing it 300 years
That's
ago.
on the films, isn't it?
Yes.
I wouldn't know about it.
Rocket.
A rocket? Why, I should think you'd know that.
Well, we don't.
Well, you don't have to. That is in a book called From the Earth to the Moon and Around the Moon by Jules Verne. A wooden shoe. Mr. Kieran.
3 mariners, winking, blinking, and nod.
Now, what did they do?
sailed off in a wooden shoe.